Hi guys, this is Karthik from Caapid Simplified. Welcome to our next video as a follow-up to the webinar we had with Dr. Jui from CU. This is about a topic that's covered in a lot of application steps, your SOP, your LOR, your supplemental answers, your interview, and so on. The question around diversity. As soon as we think of diversity, we think of this movie where there's somebody standing in the front, he's all encompassing, stretching his hands out, and he has these different kind people wearing different clothes coming and holding their hands together and singing Kumbaya. While that is diversity, yes, here in the admissions committee, they're trying to test you for something more subtle and understand who you are and why it's important for you to embrace diversity. Let's look at a couple of factors that influence this decision. First is US educational institutions in general are liberal. And by liberal, you mean that they aren't conservative, they are open to people's diverse thoughts. And when you come as an international student into their program, they are here to respect your value systems, accommodate them, while also helping you adapt to their value systems that they have in the US. So they don't look at you as a foreigner, they're trying to bring you into the system, have you as part of the community, and help you in that process. This liberal mindset is very, very prevalent along all educational institutions, and especially in the East Coast and West Coast. Over there, if you do not speak about diversity positively, you're in fact in trouble. These are not red states, they are owned by blue presidents, meaning Democrats, and therefore they have their liberal values very, very highly held. If you would accidentally go to a woman, and this has happened to me, and tell them that if you and your husband were to go to this party, she might actually get offended if she were gay. She would get offended if you had called her partner husband instead of calling her wife. And somehow you have to be sensitive to all this. I wasn't. I came from a conservative background where I looked down upon many of these things. So that transition was difficult for me. Having come to the US and being educated here, I had to change my lens and be as liberal as they are to view the world differently and embrace the culture over here. What are the kinds of diversity we're thinking about? No, diversity is not just ethnic diversity or racial diversity, meaning people are different by color, people are different by country of origin. Diversity can be anything. It could be something about value systems too. That you believe in something fundamentally, I believe in something else. Diversity could be about two different perspectives to plan somebody's treatment. Diversity could be about gender, it could be about language, it could be about perception. It could be about, in the US, if you ask somebody who's lived in Illinois all their life, they would say that they see cultural diversity when they come to Texas. For them, diversity is as small as which state they come from. So it's basically what you identify with, what you believe in is right, versus what everybody else believes is right, and so on. Giving room to accommodate that and empathizing with that is extremely crucial in care and in cracking your admissions. Why is it important? Okay, so if you were to go into a dental classroom, you are going to not be surprised to see many different nationalities. I know in many of our countries, we already see diversity to the right, to the left, and the front, and the back. We see people with different languages, different religions, different countries of origin, different skin colors, and so on. And we're pretty used to that. In the US, that's not so much. While on paper they are very culturally diverse, there are predominantly only three communities that dominate. One is people who consider themselves European descendants or white. One are African Americans, or otherwise known as black. And then there are Latin Americans, who are a good number of population who've come from South America and other countries. Apart from these, there isn't really a cultural mix. Even within these, they have gone through years and years of cultural struggle to bring them on an equal basis. The civil war of US is based on fighting for one culture's rights over another. So you can imagine, for them, diversity is about breaking those gaps, abolishing slavery. Their history is based on it. It's very deep rooted in their hearts to embrace diversity and think of that as a signal for progression in this world today. They also believe only if you can embrace diversity and respect the values of somebody else in your peer group and among your colleagues and someone else, can you tomorrow empathize with the patient who comes inside without any artificial bias you have in your head while treating them? I know in many of our countries, again, as doctors, the way we look at our patients is different from the way we look at our colleagues. But here, that isn't going to be the same. You would have a highly aware, highly educated patient come in and question you just the same way your care team, nurse practitioner, or dental assistant would question you. The kind of questions that they would ask would be in the same intellectual level with the same authority and autonomy, and you are supposed to, fill in their shoes, embrace that culture, and answer them appropriately. Cultural sensitivity is extremely important, and it could make or break your career later as a dentist. That's why it's super important to break your biases internally and embrace diversity. If you have been, do yourself a favor. If you have been traditionally biased towards somebody because of color, because of the stereotype that's been going along, you've been years and years of seeing a culture where women have been oppressed. You've seen movies where the male has been the hero. You've seen one race dominate in economic affluence against another race. You've seen this happen and you've witnessed it. Try to break that barrier for yourself. Do yourself a favor. You really have to overcome that bias you have inside before you can embrace it and be honest about it in an interview. It's a big jump. I've done it. I hope you can. Finally, many of us confuse diversity with inclusion. And this is a question which comes often in interviews. What is diversity? What is inclusion? How are they both different? We must have heard famous presidents and prime ministers. I know one, the Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, who used to keep saying that we want an inclusive democracy. What is the difference between the two? The simple difference is that one is outside in and one is inside out. Diversity is inside out. Diversity is about us creating identity barriers between us and somebody else. We think we are different because of our economic status, because of our ethnic origin, because of our cultural background, because of the religion we practice, because of the language we speak. We think we are different from somebody else. And we have drawn these artificial boundaries. Whereas inclusion is about the boundaries that are tangible and are real, like our economic wealth. If somebody is super poor or has been in an oppressed caste for a very, very long time, this is only reference to India, but they would have had a generational disadvantage of having access to opportunity. And this generational disadvantage would have compounded over the years, and eventually if they want to fight for the same opportunities, they would be highly underqualified for no reason but for the fact that they were born into a certain family or born into a certain economic status. That is a boundary that's been created even before they were born. It's not something based on bias and views and perspective. It's a hard socioeconomic boundary that somebody cannot break, at least in the short term. So inclusion is about bringing the rich and poor together, giving them same access to opportunities, uplifting them to the same level and empowering them equally. Whereas diversity is about breaking the biases we have internally. And that has nothing to do with what socioeconomic status you are in. That has nothing to do with laws or regulations or what comes from outside. Diversity is what you embrace from inside. Inclusion is what can happen or what can change through policy. Having said that, I hope I've given you a huge download on diversity. Go out there, speak about diversity, and keep three things in mind. First, speak about at which point were you biased and how did you break across that bias and start embracing diversity. Second, tell about what diversity taught you. Diversity must have taught you the skills of empathy, the ability to embrace new values, the ability to pick up skills from different people, the ability to echo other people's problems, resonate with them, and clarify the solutions to them, the ability to communicate in a way that would persuade people much faster than they were to understand. Speak about these values that come because you embrace diversity. And finally, give a real life example. So you were biased, then you try to become diverse, you try to embrace diversity. That embracing diversity taught you a certain skill set that you are implementing today in dentistry and has made a difference. If you can say these three parts in coherence, you're going to nail it for your diversity questions. All the best.